Welcome to the Midlife Rider Project. This is a place for riders who have lived a little and learned a lot. A place for honest reflection, lived experience, and listening for the wisdom that emerges as we ride through this second season of life. It's Valentine's week, which means we're being reminded everywhere we turn of what love is supposed to look like. There's the usual assortment of big romantic gestures symbolized by roses, candies, and hearts. And every year around this time, I find myself thinking, that doesn't really represent the kind of love that I have felt most deeply, at least not the kind that's lasted. I think a lot of us who love horses are living a very different kind of love story, one that doesn't fit nicely into a greeting card, but it's one that has staying power. I know this about myself. No matter how old I get, there's still a horse crazy little girl somewhere inside me. She never left, and it's likely she never will. I still slow down when I drive past a field with horses in it. I still look twice when I see a pretty horse, and I still feel that little lift in my chest. It's the same feeling I had back then, just lived in the now. For a lot of us, horses really were our first love. Before we knew anything much about relationships, before we understood what loss feels like, before life got complicated, they were the thing that lit us up, the thing that we were drawn to as if by invisible magnets. And I think that matters even now that most of us are decades past that moment when we first fell in love with horses. Because first loves shape us. We learn how to care about something besides ourselves, how to show up for others, how to give our attention to something outside ourselves. Over the years, what's changed, at least for me, is not the love itself. It's the way it feels and the way it shows up. Midlife love looks very different than early love. And I think that's true everywhere in our lives, with people, with work, ourselves, and with our horses. Instead of intensity, it's about honesty, authenticity, fit. There's a saying that goes, the outside of a horse is good for the inside of a person. And I think that's true. But I also think horses do something else for us. They teach us about love and loss. Because to love horses is to love something that won't be with us forever. We say goodbye always much too soon, no matter how old they are. We grieve for them just like we do for the humans in our lives. And we carry them with us always in our hearts. And somehow, even though we know our hearts will break someday, we keep loving them anyway. That sort of thing changes you. It invites you to be present, to care deeply, and to let go when you have to. And that kind of love shows up everywhere else in your life. With horses, we experience a kind of devotion that doesn't always make sense. Early mornings, sometimes very early. I remember very fondly those 3 a.m. horse show mornings. We're constantly monitoring the weather and mud. There's always mud. Cold fingers and frozen buckets in winter. Worry, that's a constant. Having horses in your life is the kind of responsibility that doesn't turn off. And still, most of us keep choosing it. not because it's easy or glamorous, but because this life gets under your skin. Because somewhere along the way, it became part of who you are. It's in your blood. We rearrange our lives around it, our schedules, priorities, our vacations, holidays, parties, weddings. We do things for our horses that we never explain to anyone else. And we don't need to, because if you know, you know. There's another saying I've heard over the years that every horse deserves to be loved by a little girl. And I would add this: I also think they deserve to be loved by a midlife woman, someone who's lived a little, learned a lot, lost some, and knows how to tell what matters and what doesn't. Midlife love is informed, grounded, and it's a beautiful time to share life with horses. Before you leave the barn today, pull up a hay bale and notice what kind of love you're actually living with your horse right now. Not the story you tell about it, but the lived everyday version. That's the one that counts. And if this brings up your own story, your first horse, your heart horse, something that shaped you, I would love to hear it. Send me a message on Substack. I'm setting up a place to gather those stories, and I'll share more soon. For now, though, I would love to hear your story. Happy Valentine's Week. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this episode resonated, I hope you'll join me again next week as we continue riding through this season together. Until then, take good care of yourself and your horse.